Happy Friday to y'all. Today, we're kind of concluding this whole section as we've been reading. It's day 27. We're in the last one, second to last one, talking about how Jesus was all about the outsider, about those who weren't perceived as being the right kind of people for God's kingdom, right? And today we're in Luke chapter 14, read verses 1 through 25, and that first chunk is what I'm going to focus on for the Devo portion of things. Because that first chunk really gets at some of the stuff that we sometimes hold on to a little too much, I think. So here we go. One Sabbath, remember Sabbath day is that day that God set apart at the very beginning, a rest kind of day. Usually we think of it as Sundays, that kind of deal. So on one Sabbath, when he went to dine at the house of the ruler of the Pharisees, they were watching him carefully. Behold, there was a man there before them who had dropsy. And Jesus responded to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they remained silent. Then he took him, this guy with dropsy, and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, Which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on a Sabbath day, will not immediately pull him out? And they could not reply to these things. I mean, basically what Jesus is getting at is the Pharisees, the religious teachers, they had come up with these gobs of rules. I mean, they were just scrolls full of them, pages of the things that you couldn't do. Because they went like to an ultra high level when it came to regarding the Sabbath or that rest day. So much so that simply walking too many steps was considered sinning against that commandment of remembering the Sabbath day. And so, like, when this guy comes before him, Jesus knows their hearts. He knows they're watching out closely. He knows that they so badly want to trip him up on something. And so Jesus asked them, should I heal this guy? Is it okay to do that on the Sabbath? Is it okay to do good on the Sabbath? In other words, what Jesus is saying is the fulfillment of the law isn't the laws we've made. It's not all the extra stuff we've added to it. Remembering the Sabbath day, remembering God's rest day, making it holy, and healing somebody, and doing good, or saving someone out of he presents that little example. Pulling somebody out of a well. Well, that would be work on the Sabbath, so I shouldn't do it. The point is life is more important. Serving people is more important. Doing the will of God, loving people, is way more important than the silly little rules we sometimes stick to. And so we kind of got to ask ourselves, what are some examples of the things we do as Christians? What are some of the Christian practices that we've basically turned into a form of legalism? The things we've added. What are the things we've sometimes made too big a deal over? Well, worship can only be on a Sunday, or it's not real worship. You gotta wear a certain type of clothing to church, or you're not really truly reverent to God. You gotta speak in a certain way, or you're really not being reverent. You gotta pray in a certain way, or you're really not praying right. Sometimes we forget the grace we've been given, and we turn everything into just one more rule to follow. That's not what Jesus was all about. So let me ask you this. How can we go around doing the kind of things Jesus was doing? Inviting the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind to hang out with us, to fellowship with us. Inviting those people that the world sees on the outside. How do we invite them in? That's my question for you today. I hope you wrestle with that. I hope God puts on your heart who you see in your mind as an outsider, and that you don't think of him as an outsider anymore, but you think of him as somebody who's just maybe needs to be brought on in. Someone who needs an invitation. Someone who needs a little bit of love in Jesus' name. So wrestle with that. Luke 14, 1 to 25 today. Catch you tomorrow.